Did I ever tell you the story about that?
Hello. Welcome to NOLA Film Scene with TJ and Plato.
I'm TJ.
And as always, I'm Plato.
Welcome back to another episode of NOLA Film Scene. We're here with our good friend Ginjer Wulff.
Hello.
Ginger, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. We're interested to hear about your acting journey. We know a little bit about your background. You and I met in a class at Jim Gleason's. I don't know if you've had some classes with Brian.
We have. We did the famous circle together. That's all that we seem to talk about.
And I believe that's where we met, was at the
correct.
circle exercise, right? Yeah.
It all comes back around to the circle.
In a big circle.
That's it.
So I started acting when I was younger. I always really liked, stage acting. I always really liked chorus and like all those local things that creative people tend to do as children. I was very interested in. I did it quite for some time in like local church, local school. And then after high school, I kind of faded out into it. I was in Florida before and I was in St. Augustine. So the real big local acting scene was Orlando. And I was just not in a position at that point in my journey to be able to drive 2.5 hours for a job. So when we moved here to Louisiana, I realized that New Orleans was a film hub that was getting bigger every day. And somebody at the gym randomly saw me and my son playing like pickleball or something, racquetball, and said, started talking to me and told me about the site My Casting File. And I started getting into background acting and was able to book a couple commercials as a primary, been in a couple movies as background. So it's been fun and really interesting.
Yeah, you did a real big commercial last year too, didn't you?
Yeah, I was one of the primaries for the He Gets Us campaign that was on the Super Bowl. That was actually the first job I ever auditioned for.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Did I ever tell you the story about that?
No,
but this is a perfect time for you to do that.
So long story short, there was like over 2,000 people that auditioned, for this commercial. And some of us were slated for primary, and then some of us were slated for background, and then some didn't have the opportunity to participate in the end. But they put you in with a partner, and we walk in, and I'm kind of like was in this weird transitional phase where the year before we had been through the process of renovating our home. I was living in an RV. I took on custody of my brother's 2 kids. So I wasn't like at my peak for fitness or like just self-care. So I walk into this audition and there's a very handsome gentleman next to me as my partner, very charismatic, very, intelligent, and he knows everybody already there. And I'm just kind of like, here go me. Hey. So they broke it down into 3 different parts. The first part, it was basically we had 7 minutes, I think, from start to finish, from the time we walked to the door to the time we walked out. The first 2 minutes was a set of scenario where we were driving in traffic. I cut off my partner. He rear-ended me. We get out. We're both very angry that we're in a car accident. So, the anger escalates. We're interacting with each other, just, ad-lib essentially, and taking direction or not from the casting director and the people in the room. I felt like I did really well with that. It was really nice back and forth, very cohesive. The second part was my partner would berate me on some type of social topic like transgender people using, whatever restroom or political stance or, things that tend to get heated, abortion, any of those topics. So my partner berated me, then I berated him. And the last part was 90 seconds of what was supposed to be a rant from a scale of 1 to 11. And, during this process, they're giving us guidance. So they were like, hey, Ginjer, you're a Trump supporter. You're a very right-wing, indignant, on a mission type person. So I kind of ran with that throughout the segment. So we get to this camera and I'm supposed to speak directly to the camera. And I start out as like, Trump was the best. He pardoned Lil Wayne. Mind you, I know nothing about politics. I don't care. I couldn't vote for a long time anyway. So for the longest time, I felt like it was kind of out of my depth and I kind of used it as an excuse to to not stay up to date on political stuff. So I wasn't a Trump supporter. I wasn't a Biden supporter. I think they both suck. So it was really interesting because I just popped out with what I felt like the scenario of the person that they had in their mind, what they wanted. So I was like, Trump's the best. He pardoned Lil Wayne. The American household was $6,000 higher the year before. Trump grabbed a pussy, and that's the American dream. And then once it was out there, I couldn't take it back. So I had to be committed. I have never been so mortified in my life. Listen, I was like, internally, it was like, I felt like I had Tourette's, you know what I mean? Like, this is not what I was going for. And I don't know where it came from, but the casting director smacked the desk and hit the floor as soon as it happened. So I was like, he couldn't stop laughing. And I'm thinking, I was supposed to be like irate, but in my mind, rants don't typically make sense. They start in one direction and then they tend to go somewhere else without like a clear, concise train of thought. So that's kind of what I was trying to emulate. And I was so embarrassed. I cried after that audition. And I changed my hair. I went and got new clothes. I did not want to be recognized as the Tourette's girl who screamed out, Trump grabbed a punani in the middle of her first audition. For like 3 weeks, I was just, I can't believe I said that. Why did I do that? I can't believe I did that. And then I got an email saying they booked me for the job. And it was like the first person out of the group of people that was within my agent that was notified that was actually chosen. So I thought it was really interesting because that's how it's been for both of my jobs, actually, that have been audition jobs, is I thought I bombed it and I got booked. And all the ones where I'm like, yeah, this is it. Nothing.
Right. You never know what's going to grab their attention, and you can have the best audition. You just might not have the right look. You can have the worst audition and they love your look. It's all a crap.
That's right.
All you can do is do your best every time.
That's right.
To clarify a little bit, it's the He Got Us.
He Gets Us.
Yeah, nonverbal. It was shown during the Super Bowl, and it showed angry people, and the intent was to get people together off of all these divisions that we had.
Correct. And I think that's why they wanted to see anger. Yes. Yeah, the title of the commercial is Confrontation. You can find it on YouTube.
Right. Another thing we've been asking people is, what was your inspiration to go from background to striving for speaking parts?
Yeah.
What brought you into the classes? What inspired you?
So I never really saw myself as background. I had a lot of drama and theater training as a child. I really enjoyed it. I really like being able to bring a character to life and give them quirks and make them memorable and make them my own. And I just kind of always saw myself doing that, but I felt like I didn't know how to get in the industry. I mean, I heard, get an agent, get on a site. Okay, but how? So basically I used the information that I got from Eric Lemuel. You might know who he is, Brian. I think he's on your Facebook. But he was actually the person that told me about my casting file and was how I joined. And it was really a great segue for me to go from, being focused on my home life and not really caring very well for myself to focusing and regrouping on, like, my child's getting a little older because he's about to be 4 now. So this is a year ago. So getting him into some type of consistent daycare, getting like some normalcy, and then being able to take back my creative freedom and to see if it would be a good fit. Because, dude, there's some projects, like I worked on the airport movie, and they wanted me for every day of the week for 5 to 6 days out of the week for 6 weeks for 15-hour days. I did that for a week and I couldn't do that again. Just because I was getting up, but because I live in Slidell, so I'm an hour away from where they were filming, I was getting up at 4 a.m. and wasn't coming home till like 9:30 at night. It was just too much with the 3-year-old. So it was really nice to be able to figure out, how committed am I? Like, am I willing to be here all day to possibly have my elbow in a shot? Am I willing to drive an hour and a half to be a part of a really cool show or a really cool project, even if I'm not recognized on the set? Does that make sense? And also too, is for me, it was really good to see, like, a lot of people believe that, I had so many people on my Facebook, you're in a commercial, you must be making so much money. Nope.
Nope.
Nope. So
Little do
it
they
was
know.
a nice, I think it was a really great way to say, is this what I really want? Am I willing to do what everybody else is already doing? And then some, because I felt like I was behind the curve. Because while a lot of my fellow actors had been doing this for years, I was just getting started at 36, as far as professionally.
Right. I can totally understand. I just started 4 years ago, so I was 49 or almost 49.
I thought you were
when the
my
bug bit me.
age.
I'm 53.
I thought you were a lot younger than that, bro.
I'm just so pretty.
I started late too.
It puts the lotion on its skin.
Thank you for calling me Buffalo Bill, I think. Anyway.
I was actually referring to myself because I need the lotion to not look 50 when I'm 36.
I got you. I need to start a facial regimen, I think it's called. But I've always had a young face. I think it runs in my family. Smaller nose, smaller teeth. But also because I work graveyard shift, I'm not out in the sun. I'm not bathing. Yeah. Not that I don't drink, but working 7 days a week, it's kind of hard to go out at night till 8, 9, 10 o'clock and get up for 4, 5, 6 in the morning, sometimes 3 in the morning and function and then have to clean up after the party, especially if you've just been in and going, why did I make this mess? Like I just cleaned up after a Saints football game at one of the bars today, and I love the Saints, but I hate cleaning up after the fans,
Yeah.
Don't love the after party.
Yeah. Hey, it pays the bills so I can act, right?
Right.
That's right.
Ginjer, what was your first acting? We've heard from a couple people, our last two guests, they see, because whenever, we've taken our classes together, I try to take selfies, I promote, whether it's, I really don't do Jim's class, take pictures every week, but everybody knows I'm taking class. And they're like, oh, you work so hard. Because like you, I felt like I was behind the curve. I'm tired of being a janitor and I want some meaty roles. Background's great. I love doing background. That was so much fun. You can't pay the bills, at least not in Louisiana. In LA or New York, you have a chance to become SAG and do it. And you might be able to, work out a career with it, especially now with the strike coming, maybe that will help, yada, yada, yada. So, but then I gave that up because I wanted the lines, and it took me a while in Jim Gleason's class, the application, which is where you study the scenes and it's basically like an audition. You learn your craft. It's premiere, intermediate, and advanced. And I was lucky enough, I made it up to intermediate. And then I kind of stalled for a while. And it's like, oh God, I'm not an actor. Oh crap, I'm not doing anything. Then finally, did an indie film here, took some other classes. I took Ann Mahoney's self-tape class and Charlie Adler's voice acting class, each of them twice. They're on Zoom, like 6 months apart. And because I had to stop, I went on vacation. So I didn't feel like I finished the class. And then Charlie, I want to be a voice actor, and Charlie Adler's, he's the best. So, but each of those teachers saw on the second class, my first day, they were like, you have improved so much. And it felt so good. And actually being in an independent film with lines, I finally felt that I wasn't a student. I was now an actor. Didn't need the job yet. I want it, but I'm an actor. I can call myself an actor. I don't feel bad about saying that anymore. And now I really, so those were the changes for me. Do you remember your first acting class? Was it with Jim?
My first acting class was actually upstairs with Debbie Gaudette. And then I went to Jim Gleason, and I'd signed up for, I think, something that Hunter did over at Love Acting. So I've done a few things. I would like to be, the intensive workshop. Yes. I would like to be more involved. It's a little more difficult for me right now with where I'm at, physically, with having small children in the home and being an hour over the bridge. A lot of the classes are at night.
Right.
So it makes it hard for me I'm an early morning person. I'm up 5 o'clock, 5:30, 6 o'clock every day. And I start to lose steam about 4:30. So if I'm not already out in the area at 4 or 5 o'clock, I'm not coming out, and that's something else too. It's a mindset thing. It's not only because if I really wanted to change my schedule, could I? Absolutely. Would it be very stressful for me and my family? Absolutely. But again, it's where are you? I have goals, like little goals, to be able to have more freedom in the evenings, some things that I just have to work through. Also seasonally, things change for me. I tend to be more open schedule wise, January through like July. And then I do a big Halloween party. It's my nephew's birthday, my son's birthday, and my favorite holiday. So I've got like $10,000 worth of Halloween crap that I throw out in this big yard I have and just invite anybody who wants to come. So if you guys have nothing going on in October, let me know.
I saw your pumpkin post.
Yeah.
I saw your pumpkin post when you started working.
Yeah, I've been following your post on the stuff that you're making. My favorite one was the blacklight one with the skeleton.
Yeah, I'm actually going to have 2 of those. I have one out now. Then I bought a bunch of the 12-foot things from Home Depot. I got like 5 of them out there. Bunch of stuff on the house. Bunch of stuff I made. So, and it's cool too because so we've been on strike, right? So I was working a lot, and then the strike started, and it was like there was no work, but it kind of worked well for me because it had coincided with I happened to travel a lot during the summer. So I was in the point where I just kind of needed a break and a reset. So I was grateful for the lapse, but it's like I'm able to get caught up on things and able to have this creative outlet, because otherwise I feel like I'd just be kicking around dust, spinning circles around myself, because I need to stay busy to feel productive, even if I'm just doing circles.
Yeah. and the jobs started drying up basically January, if not a little bit before, because people knew the strikes were probably going to happen, or the chance of them were going to happen. And so they didn't want to be in the middle of production and have to stop,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I went from working like at least twice a week, or basically every week in January, to like March came around and they were saying, hey, we had you booked for this job, but we have to shelf it. And then I booked a small job, I think in DC, that was like a crime reenactment. And then I had the other job in May, which was the Blue Cross Blue Shield commercial, where I got to be like the boxer. And that was it.
Nice.
I actually just got a request for an audition Friday for a movie that's supposed to film in Mississippi. My son got a request last night too, so that'd be cool. It's nice to see stuff starting to come through again.
Yeah, I always remember, it might have even been our second circle exercise. And like Jim says, we don't get in depth about it, but it is living a life and there are emotions involved. And you touched on some of your emotions. So when you were talking to the class about it, you turned to me and goes, yeah, that's why I wish you had stood up so I could unload on you. And I'm like, oh my God. And it was the second person that day that was, one person did unload him, and then you're like, I can take Brian. I'm like, what did I do? I'm just trying to stand. And that was our introduction, basically.
Yeah, I think that was like our second or third class together. But I had seen you in classes and I'd been watching you on social media. So I was actually I felt like you would be able to take and respond, and we would be able to have a cohesive scene, no matter where you were at with what you were portraying, or what the scenario was.
Well, I've always seen you as kind of a force of nature. I said about Charlie Adler too, but Ginjer's there, and it's wonderful. But it's whoa, hang on, here we go. And it's a lot of fun, unlike TJ, that guy.
Yeah, I'm boring. I'm dull. I thought you had some really strong emotions, some really powerful scenes in the circle exercise that I was at with you.
Thank you. See, I feel like you guys are all over the scene. I feel like every time I turn my social media on that you guys are on another project. So I have to kind of keep the mindset too of I'm a baby and I am fortunate to be invited to even audition, right? Because otherwise I'll get in the mindset of, well, dang, what are they doing? Well, that's really cool. I didn't get to do that. And it's like, well, did you audition? Did you try out? No. So, but that consciousness, if that makes sense, I think that's what eats people up in the beginning. And I believe that is what makes it so hard for a lot of people in the industry, because a lot of people are struggling financially right now with their jobs, no matter what they're doing, right? So
that's right.
If you can already deal with the struggle of the money aspect and knowing that you're not going to be big balling for a little minute, it's a general blanket statement for most people. If you're able to endure the no's and the silence, and you're able to allow people to say, you as a human being are perfectly fine as you are. You, for this role, you would need to da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Does that make sense? I feel like that is what kills people in the industry in the beginning, is they come in very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed with aspirations and dreams, which are amazing. But sometimes it's like you have to realize, Rome wasn't built in a day type deal, where it's like, to compare yourselves to others, which is something that I fall into. I allow myself to go that route sometimes, but I tend to snap out of it quickly. Thank God I've learned to recognize it, because I think it could be super detrimental to somebody who needs validation, like from themselves or from at least their peers or their coworkers, to say that they're doing a good job, which you might not even get that on a scene that you're booked on. You might not know that you did a good job until you see it and it airs and everybody else, you know You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I think that that's something that is really interesting about this industry is it allows you to see like where you're really at with your emotional intuitiveness and your thick skinnedness as far as what are you willing to do to be able to move forward with your journey, and do you need to tailor your journey to what you aren't willing to do? You know what I mean?
Right.
That's right. It's difficult to not compare yourself to other people, but you have to really focus and concentrate on only comparing yourself to yourself. My coach, my acting teacher is James DeMont, and he says, I've never been rejected for a role. I just wasn't selected. And he teaches from a position of the audition is the win. That's the job. The audition is the job. If you get the audition, crafting that audition and shooting that self-tape, that's the job. That's you're a working actor when you get that audition because of the amount of work that goes into preparing that. And another actor, I said this in a previous podcast, and another friend told me one time, once you submit it, submit and forget. Don't even think about whether or not you're going to get called back or you're going to book the role. Once it goes out, it's out of your hands. There's nothing you can do. There's no point in worrying about it. And a casting director, in fact, it was during the same intensive that you mentioned earlier with Hunter McHugh. I saw y'all at that. I was in the later session. He said, sometimes it's just out of their hands. Casting will like somebody and they'll send people forward that they recommend, but production may already have somebody else in mind, and there's nothing you can do about it. They may have a role that they promised to somebody else, and it's out of your hands. You know, you might be perfect for the role, but they want somebody else. So you never can really tell. It may not have anything to do with the performance that you did. You know, Brian mentioned earlier, you may be the wrong height. You may be taller than the lead. You may be shorter. You may, it just may not mesh well with the scene. So it's difficult, but I try not to get into my own head about that stuff,
Yeah, and we say that. It's like, I'm not getting my own head. And then you get in your own head. You can't help it. I have two that are, the callback is today. So if I don't hear from them today, that's pretty much it. And I shared one with you, TJ, for the commercial. And the other one, I had just posted part of my singing class. And I felt very good about that. And then the next day I saw an audition that involved a musician, but you could sing. I was like, oh, what the hell? I'm going to try. And I thought that was a pretty good one. And so I was like, yeah, look, the universe sees me. It sees I can sing. It's all about that time. You get excited. And then the commercial audition, I actually got feedback. And the casting director said, oh man, that was great. I was like, oh, thank you. There was no word. It was all nonverbal and you had to go through the emotions, And I said, I was afraid I wasn't doing enough when I wasn't acting big, and I was afraid I was acting too big when I was supposed to be acting big. He goes, no, it was strong. I'm like, oh yeah, means I got it, right? Well, I haven't heard anything on either one. So, you can have your best day, and that's what you have to celebrate. You know what I mean? It's still heartbreaking, but at the same time, I'm waiting for that. And I got 2 more self-tape requests today. Same thing. I put in for 2 different roles. Take every victory you can.
That's right.
I think both of you guys gave some sage advice.
Yeah, thank you.
I would like to, piggyback on that question of what do you do for yourselves if you have a role that maybe you're nervous about, or, you're really contemplating because you've got the whole script. How much time do you dedicate to something like that? And what type of headspace? So for me, like my headspace is everything. I have a lot of distractions. I have ADHD as it is. So like I have a lot of other things going on. I cannot put my best effort into an audition. And I've had so many people tell me, hey, get something down because you could come back to it, because I've missed deadlines because I will wait for the right time. So I guess my direct question is, what do you do to prevent missing deadlines? And even though it's coming up, it's not like you forget about it. It's like the procrastination. How do you nip that in the bud? What has been the most effective tool for you, or ritual, or whatever you want to call it, to say, hey, they're either going to love it or they're just going to find somebody else. Let's not think too much in the gray. What could be, what shouldn't be. Let's get something out and submit it. And then if they want more, I can always give more. And then B, if you're deciding between 2 sides and you can only submit one, what do you go off of other than like just pure intuition to decide which one is your favorite, or which is the side that you're going to lean to submit? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So what I do, unless it specifically says only submit 1 take, I always submit 2. And I make sure the second one is different. I do the first one for the casting director and the second one for me. So the second one, more outrageous, bigger, bolder, a bolder choice, a different eye line from what I used in the first one. And I start right away. It depends on how long I have, if there's 2 or 3 days or whatever to submit it. My coach says submit as soon as you can. Don't wait until the last minute. And I've heard acting or casting directors say that as well. Don't wait till the last minute to get it in. The sooner you get it in, a well crafted self-tape, the sooner they see it, because they have so many they're looking at. They start looking at them right away. And if you can catch their attention early while they're still excited to be looking at self-tapes and excited to see what you're putting out, you get in their mind quicker. I start breaking it down right away, and I try to get that character into my bones. And I'll walk around and I'll look at the side. For me to memorize it, everybody has different techniques. I read it a bunch of times and I get real comfortable, real familiar with it. And I'll read backwards. I'll start with the last word of my line. The very last line, I look at that. Okay, that's, and James taught me this. This is basically what the scene is about. And I'll start at the back and read the last word and then the previous word and work backwards with each sentence. For me, it helps just get that completely into my brain. And I try to find just a quiet space. Life goes on. Things are happening around you. I just try to focus on that. And if it's a really long one, I'll even write it out. I'll write it out a couple times too, because that forces me to slow down and read each word instead of sometimes you just scan past words when you're reading. So that's 2 techniques I use to get it into my bones. And I just get to where I can say the whole thing without referring to the side. And as I'm learning it, I'm not reading my scene partner's lines. I might read the last couple of words of their line just so I know when the cue is, because I feel like if I'm learning their lines too, then I start anticipating what they're going to say versus actually paying attention to what they're saying and then reacting to that. And I try to start on it as soon as I can and try to get it out as soon as I can.
Actually, mine have been kind of on the last day. So I'm not on purpose, but directly the opposite. I look at my whole schedule. I'd love to get it done. But at the same time, looking at my schedule, okay, I have to study for this class. I have to study for this class. I have an improv show or an improv class I have to get to plus work. But the minute I start reading it. And then I might just read it a few times and then think about it. And then studying, straight up memorization, I use the Cold Read app, which I can program. You record yourself and then you record the first line. Is that mine or is that my reader? And you click the button and you record it all. And you can listen to it, the whole thing. I love doing that while I'm cleaning, while I'm working. If I'm not listening to a podcast, or I usually don't listen to music. And I just let it sink in and I think about it. Oh, why is this person reacting that way? Why? What is my motivation here? Why did I say that? And I don't try to study the other person's lines, but looking for what in their line inspired me to say that next line. And so once I feel good with that, you hit a button on this app and it's called On Cue. So it will read the reader's line and then wait for me. And using voice recognition, I have to say my line and get all the words right, especially the last one. And then it won't move on until it hears that. So it's the best thing next to having an actual person with you.
Is the app called On Cue?
You're going to ask a question? No. Cold Read. There's also Line Learner. I think I like Cold Read.
I've never heard of it. I did not know such a thing existed. What I was doing was I was just using my camera and I would just record it and try to play it in the car. After a while, it's not, it was basically only safe when I was stopping because once it wouldn't loop like a TikTok video unless I posted it, and that's not something you're going to post to your social. So I couldn't figure out how to loop it like a song on repeat. So I'm definitely going to check that out. That sounds really interesting.
You could also use the Memo app on your phone. I'd use it on my Apple one. And you just record as a paragraph. There's no control of it. That one will loop.
Okay. I didn't know that either.
So I'm looking up right now. An actor friend of mine told me about one. I don't remember if it was Cold Read or if it was similar to Cold Read, but you can actually have it, when you record it, you can have it change the voice of your scene partner. Does Cold Read do, is Cold Read the one that does that?
Cold Read doesn't. Line Learner might.
It might have been that. Yep.
It's
Line Learner. Yeah. My friend told me about an actor that I worked with named Blake. Blake Nolan told me about this. You can have it change the voice of your scene partner. So when you're reading it back, it sounds different and it works similar to Cold Read where it'll pause and wait for you to deliver your line.
Yeah.
And I've heard casting directors say that it doesn't matter to them. It doesn't bother them if you're reading your own lines.
Right.
I know people that'll do that. They'll use some type of mobile device and have the lines. I actually did that for the last job I booked, normally my wife reads with me, and she was traveling and couldn't. So I had her record her lines real quick and just spaced it out as though I was giving my lines. And then I played it back from my tablet and used that for my self-tape. And it worked out pretty well. Fortunately, it wasn't a really long scene to where timing could have become an issue.
Right.
But with that particular scene, it worked out. And I ended up getting a call back and booking that one.
You do have to
That's
be careful
awesome.
with that. How do I put this? I would do it so much, but only concentrate on the words so that when I stepped into the audition room, into Jim's class, I was doing it just rote. There was no emotion. There was no feeling. So you have to concentrate on that still while you're practicing. First, you kind of just got to get in your head. And then it's like, okay, why am I saying this? And all those good stuffs. And, you can't make it really yell at you unless you yell in the app, that kind of thing. So that's the advanced stuff we learn, of course, in all the classes. And the other thing if I needed someone to read with me, I set up my camera, my iPhone, and my in my little space out there, and then use a person on. And then I have let me try that again in English. I have a person on mobile, and I have a little speaker, and so that they're louder, I put the speaker near the iPhone so you can hear my reader. The only problem
Makes
is
sense.
because I'm in my little DIY voice booth here using this camera. Right outside is my self-tape area. They couldn't see me. I didn't move the camera to the correct space. The wire wouldn't reach. So we kind of had to guess a little bit, So, but putting it on a speaker lets the people hear your reader, which you don't want your reader to outshine you, but you want them to be able to hear that you're reacting to something.
Right.
Oh, and so back to your question, it's for me scheduling. When can I tape it? Do I need a reader? When they can do it? The practice in between. And then for me, a lot of the exhaustion because I do so much. Like I taped one 2 Saturdays ago, and I was going to come home and upload it. I had a whole nother day to do it. And when I got home, I was just like, I'm going to do it tomorrow. It's finding that balance on all the different.
I struggle with the same things that Brian said.
If you can't do it early, at least get it done, by the deadline.
For sure.
If you can't, reach out to the casting director because they will take it sometimes. I don't have any experience or any knowledge about that yet, knock on wood. But, all you can do is do your best.
Yeah, occasionally you'll see a casting director will say they will take a late submission on a case-by-case basis. My personal opinion is get it in as soon as possible so you can get on their radar as soon as possible. But, I'm not saying that I always get it in right away. Sometimes I have waited until the deadline day to submit something, especially if I have more than one that's due. I can't focus on 2 different ones or 3 different ones, so I try to do them in the order of when they're due and get to them as quick as possible. And if I have one for class, then that ends up getting saved till last. The actual auditions come first.
That makes sense.
Practice. That's important. And when you can, in between, if you don't have an audition, and if you're not in class, my classes, most of them are on Zoom. So we submit self-tape every week, get critique, and then make adjustments and submit it again the next week. And it can be one that was from an audition, or it can be one that he sends out. And it really helps to stay in that rhythm and practice and do at least one a week. And you can find sides online to practice with. Set your camera up and just rehearse do a practice self-tape by yourself. That way, when it comes time to do one, it's second nature. You can crank it out. It gets easier. And I found the more that I'm working, especially having 1 to 3 a week for class, remembering lines gets easier. The more I do it, it sticks a little bit better, says I.
When you say it with that beard, it's like coming from Moses.
Right?
10 commandments of auditioning. Whoa.
Says I.
I have spoken. Love coming to have these little moments with people and to hear about like their journey and their struggles and what has helped them, because I feel like the network of creatives is so important for me when it comes to feeling a part of something greater than yourself. And also for, I don't know how to say this without it sounding kind of weird, but almost for like the emotional security of, hey, I might not book any jobs the next couple months, but I have lots of stuff that other people in the community and I can talk about. And I have these experiences from not being booked in the beginning to be able to let it roll off later. And then when I get booked, it's like I'm so much more grateful grateful to be on set because it's like, oh, wow, I did, 3 or 4 or however many. And I got one where they felt like they could use me. So that's amazing. But I feel like the best thing about being part of is the ability to learn from other people and the ability to be like, I never would have thought of doing it the way Brian did, or I never would have thought of coming in completely dressed and engulfed in the character in the way that TJ did. You know what I mean? So it's really interesting. And I think that's what makes it really exciting for me is the ability to have these interpersonal relationships and experiences, even out of failure, if that makes sense. Because I personally don't believe there's real failure in this industry other than stopping when you don't want to quit. You quit because I don't feel like I can do this. Somebody told me I'm too fat, too tall, too skinny, too loud, too quiet, whatever. I don't know. I think that there comes, for me, I should say, there's been a big journey of like self-realization, every step of the way. And like I said, I'm just getting my little baby toddler acting feet out there. So I'm hoping that in a year I'll have a little more experience and we could revisit this conversation. And I could say I implemented the tools that you guys taught me. So now what else have you guys got? Because you guys are more experienced in this than I am. So it's really awesome to feel like I have people that have more experience and more knowledge in this industry than I do, just wanting to hear about my experiences in the industry and my thoughts on it. So I really appreciate that and deeply grateful for the opportunity to be on this.
Yeah, of course. And that's one of the reasons we started this particular type of podcast is to get to know other performers, other creatives, see what their process is, hear their stories. Everybody has a different story, a different way they got started. And I think it's really good to hear what other people are going through and to know that we're all in this together. We're all going through the same stuff. And it's really cool.
Yeah, I think perseverance is the key. Like you said, and quitting is the only failure. But sometimes you have to pause and you have to take a break and, catch your breath. Or life comes in the way where you have to pay bills and you can't even think about doing classes or getting on set. Whatever that journey is, we can all still help each other. And you're saying we're not that much further ahead of you and we're inspiring you. Fantastic. I love that. But I've heard your story on a different podcast and you've gone through some amazing things and persevered in life. And, just meeting you, I thought you were a force of nature. And then hearing about what you went through and it's like mind blowing. Oh my God. I can see why she just barrels through it all. So I know you struggled. Don't forget you're inspiring others while you're being inspired.
That's right.
Even if you don't see it, even if you don't think it, oh, I'm just new to this. Yeah, but it's not like we're all in kindergarten and just started. We are bringing that life. I was a musician in high school, and there's one of Harry Potter. Harry Connick Jr.'s first trombone players. I think I saw him on Saturday Night Live. I was like, did I used to compete against this guy? So I always thought, oh my God, what if I had practiced more? I would have been the guy on stage. I might have drugged out and been gone by now. I might have succeeded. Doesn't matter. All that life experience, now is the time for me, probably not to be a trombonist, we'll see, but to be an actor, to be an entertainer, maybe a singer. You know what I mean? But the same thing. You are where you were meant to be. You know what I mean? There's something of a calling to this, and you have to have that armor, that tough skin. And Jim put it that, and others have said it, when we get to the truths and we share that deeply emotional scene, like I always think of Meryl Streep, Sophie's Choice, and that touches an audience and they bawl their eyes out. That's a safe way for someone to deal with those emotions. Maybe they won't have to make that kind of choice, but you let those emotions out. It's like being on a roller coaster. It's scary, a horror movie. It's scary, but it's safe. So we let people experience those emotions that they need at that point. And they get touched and they help, whether you think it's the universe, you think it's God, whatever your thought is on it, there's a highness to this that's amazing. You are where you are meant to be. Good things are going to happen. Bad things are going to happen too, but you're going to persevere. And I'm not going to say it's all going to be fine, but it's all going to be something.
Right.
It's going to be interesting.
It's going to be okay because it's going to be okay.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. Yeah, Ginjer, I know you're going to succeed. You have that go get 'em attitude, and you're gonna do well. I know it.
Just don't forget us little people when you get it.
Same to you. I feel like you could definitely be a singer. Like you could definitely be a Vegas act.
Yeah, baby. Yeah. Okay.
So I did want to ask you guys real quick.
So what's your question, Alan?
If you had like a dream role, do you guys have anything in mind for like what you would want to do? I could see you guys both on like the Sons of Anarchy. I could see you guys both in, like you said, biblical type stuff. Leading the nation.
You first, TJ.
Yeah, I have some dream roles. Obviously, with my look, I'm kind of limited on what I can do. I knew coming into this that I wasn't leading man type of guy, but something the big bad guy, the leader of a criminal gang. I don't know. I've got some ideas. I'm still trying to figure that out.
Cool.
I would love to see TJ as like somebody in like a Rico scheme or like a biker cult or something of that nature.
Evil preacher.
That would be great.
Cult
too.
leader. I'm trying to think how to formulate this because I've been asked different questions. When you're on the outside of the camera saying that we're on the inside, we see people winning Oscars. Oh, wow, that's cool. I'm not really worried about that. If I can develop my skill enough to where that's gravy. Oh, those stars are millionaires. I just want to support my family. Any more than that, great. Woohoo. But just to make a living at it. My secret, and I say it all the time, so it's not a secret, deepest, darkest hope is I want to be in something where it makes me an action figure. Whether it's voiceover, because I've been studying that. I'd love to be a cartoon. There are certain sci-fi shows, fantasy shows. And I don't mean like going to, like, I think it's Hasbro. You can send in your picture and they'll make you a G.I. Joe. That's nice. No. I want it like when I was a kid and walked into and saw the Star Wars figures on the shelf. Company made that. They put it in the blister packs. There's dozens of them. They're sold all over the world. And I didn't have to pay a thing for it except that's my goal. Doesn't have to be those shows.
It'd be super cool.
I guess it could be a Funko Pop. I'm not picky.
Love Funko Pops.
And it would let me do Comic-Cons on panels. And I like taking photos with people more than autographs. But yeah,
right.
I want to be the guy people want to take the picture with instead of me going to take the picture with them.
Right.
I could see that. That's
happening. Super cool.
Ginger, what about you? You have a dream role?
I really like roles where because I tend to be a really caring and empathetic person. So I think I like roles that are opposite. I kind of like the villain or like a superhero villain because I've got boxing and MMA background. I think those would be super fun. I also think I'd make the fun guys girl, kind of like in the Two Broke Girls or, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of different ways I could go, but I think I would enjoy being a villain, like probably the most kind of villain you love to hate. Yeah.
I can see that. You got a bit of height on you, so you could be imposing to a lot of people.
Yeah. So, and like TJ said, I knew coming into this that at 5'10" and 190 pounds, like I am not your female lead. Most men in film are like 5'7", 5'8", right? So I'm typically not going to be paired with somebody like that unless it's a comedy and the guy's like, here. So, and I'm okay with that. Hey,
check out my Amazon babe.
Right. So, but I would love to do this again after we all have had a more experience and have had the opportunity to do some of these roles because I definitely see it for you guys for sure.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll absolutely have you back.
We've got to give a few other people a chance to be on though. So
for sure. I want to hear from people that
they're
know
just beating
stuff.
Down the door.
Hey, man, I guarantee they are.
I like hearing from people.
I guarantee they are. You just haven't asked them yet. And it's rude to just come in when you're not invited, right? But they're standing outside the door. They're waiting to get in.
We've reached out to some people higher on the food chain, in our level of the food chain, maybe a side food chain. So things will be happening.
Yeah, we've got some people lined up.
I'm really excited to see where this goes for you guys.
Cool, thank you. We love watching you. Do you want to promote any social media?
I mean, you guys can follow me on TikTok or Instagram or whatever. On Instagram, it's Lil Red Wolf, LIL_red RED_Wolf WULFF. And then I'm at Ginjer Wulff on TikTok and Ginjer Wulff on Facebook.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.